cloudy with a low around 9, and Thursday some light snow with a high near 33. You can discover macarons like you've never tasted before in Nicolette's Macarons in Plymouth. Pick up a box of elegant French macarons today, conveniently located off Highway 169. They're perfect for unique gifts, corporate events, or just for yourself. Stop in and order at nicolettesmacarons.com. That's nicolettesmacarons.com.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPTA 20, Chicago's progressive talk. Welcome to the Gaily Show, the only daily LGBTQ radio news and talk show in the United States. I'm your host, John Parker, in studio with my executive producer, Jim Pounds.
Hey, all.
And real quick, I've got a pair of tickets to give away. I've just been told to ride the Cyclone at Lyric Arts this Sunday in Anoka, Minnesota at 2 p.m. I want to give these away. So first caller wins these free pair of tickets to ride the Cyclone at Lyric Arts in Anoka this Sunday, 2 p.m. Call in. First caller, 952-946-6205. 946-6205. We've got a lot to get to on the show today. Jake Wittig, managing editor of Windy City Times, joins us at the bottom of the hour. Some breaking news out of Minnesota. A federal judge has refused to issue a temporary restraining order to stop ICE operations in Minnesota. Attorney General Keith Ellison, along with Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey and St. Paul Mayor Kali Herr, filed a lawsuit on Monday against the Trump administration, which included asking for a restraining order to immediately stop ICE operations in the Twin Cities and the state. U.S. District Judge Catherine Menendez claimed there wasn't enough time to review the facts of the case to issue that requested restraining order. She instead set a deadline of January 19th, so this upcoming Monday, for the Trump administration to respond to the lawsuit filed by Attorney General Ellison. Minnesota then will have until January 22nd to respond to that, and then we will get into arguments. So we will keep you obviously up to date on what is happening there. Speaking of the law, yesterday the Supreme Court heard two cases related to transgender participation in sports. Observers of the court have noted for a while now that the conservative majority is so anti-transgender that the oral arguments might not have mattered yesterday. In previous cases, the court accepted data that seemed to justify their rulings that critics allege have been falsified, or what some experts have characterized as junk science. Their ruling could go far beyond athletics and impact access to education and public accommodations. But to help us understand what is at stake here, we are very lucky to have Gaily Patel, who is a Title IX attorney and the Senior Director of Education Justice at the National Women's Law Center. And I just want to brag about Gaily's accomplishments here, because we need this legal expertise to help us figure out what happened yesterday at the Supreme Court. So previously, Gaily was at the U.S. Department of Education in their Office for Civil Rights, where she worked on civil rights policy and legal guidance interpreting Title IX's anti-discrimination protections. Prior to that, she was an administrative judge and investigator at the U.S. Department of Energy, Office of Hearings and Appeals, and was also a special assistant United States attorney in the District of Columbia. Gaily, thank you for taking the time to join us today. I know you're very busy, given the oral arguments were just yesterday, and a lot of folks want to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the show. I'm really excited to be here.
Okay, thank you. So I'm in the media. I am not an attorney. I have thoughts about the questions that the justices were asking yesterday in both cases and how they were maybe tipping their hands and how they plan to rule. But I'm very curious to hear, what were your takeaways from oral arguments yesterday?
Yeah, so there has been a lot of discussion and analysis about oral arguments that took place yesterday. Look, I think it's really important to know that there are fundamentally two legal questions that are before the Supreme Court. And these questions are about the legality of anti-trans sports bans in two different states, Idaho and West Virginia, that specifically target trans women and girls. And in these cases, there are about two girls in particular, one of them who's still fighting in the case to be able to play sports. And these bans apply across the board. They categorically ban trans women and girls of all ages at all levels of competition from being able to play on women and girls sports teams. And so, from the questions and the oral argument yesterday, the courts were addressing Title IX and equal protection. So these are two separate laws. Title IX is a civil rights law that has existed for over 50 years that protects against sex discrimination in education. The other issue was the equal protection guarantee of the U.S. Constitution, which also protects against sex discrimination. It seems that the court might leave open the constitutional question around whether or not these anti-trans sports bans in these cases that specifically target trans girls violate their constitutional rights. There are still some questions that are left open for the lower court in the BPJ case. On the issue of Title IX, which I will say as a Title IX attorney, it broadly protects against sex discrimination in all areas of education and programming. More than half the states in this country have an anti-trans sports ban. Most of them target trans women and girls specifically. And it seems that the court may uphold the bans in these cases. However, I think the silver lining is it seems that they may not be, issuing a sports ban across the country. So that would leave open the almost over 20 states that have trans inclusive sports bans, right? And I think that could also leave a huge hole in what the Trump administration is doing when they're going after educational institutions and states and threatening to withhold billions of dollars because they're forcing those states and schools to ban trans students from playing sports on their wrong interpretation of Title IX.
So I don't know if this was surprising that they seemed that they were going to be going in this direction. It was clearly an exchange that they were having where they're like, how do we let the blue states keep, transgender athletes competing? And how do we let the red states ban them? But it immediately, what you're saying there reminded me of their Scrimeti decision from last year, which was around Tennessee and gender affirming care for youth, where they said, okay, well, blue states, you can keep this, but red states, if you want to ban it, go ahead and ban it. And now a year later, we've got the Trump administration going after blue states and saying, well, we're going to take away Medicaid funding. We're going to sue y'all. Like, we're going to stop gender affirming care for, it doesn't matter what the court said last year. We're coming at you. We're using the executive power to make that stop. Did that come up at all, this scenario yesterday of, well, yeah, you can leave these blue states to allow transgender folks to participate, but how do they protect themselves against the executive branch?
Yeah, I mean, so, there was questions about the uncertainty around these issues, and there was some uncertainty that was still needing to be resolved, especially around the constitutional questions. And because of that, it seemed that the justices didn't want to create a rule that would impact the entire country and require them to ban trans women and girls from sports. And again, here what the Trump administration is doing in their interpretation of Title IX, they're not just saying that Title IX allows schools to ban trans students, they're saying it requires it. Mm-hmm. And that fundamentally also contravenes what the Supreme Court said in 2020 in its decision in Bostock, where the Supreme Court held under a different civil rights law, Title VII, that discrimination against someone because of their trans identity, sexual orientation, is discrimination based on sex in violation of Title VII. Now, the history of Title IX in focusing on sex discrimination is that oftentimes courts have looked to Title VII interpretations for sex discrimination. We've seen that in the context of sexual harassment. Lower courts have said the same about Bostock and trans student rights. So it really, it's hard to see how, logically speaking, there could be a different analysis under Title IX than Title VII for how the two laws in protecting against sex discrimination, Title VII being broader, would come out with a different outcome. That being said, Title IX is broader in that, because it's about educational programs and activities, it also reaches much further. It addresses sports, it addresses bathroom access, it addresses a lot, but still fundamentally the core question around what does sex discrimination protections protect against the Supreme Court has said very clearly in Bostock that includes transgender protection. So that is another piece of it. There are a lot of different ways that this court can come out. A lot of different levels in terms of how severe or how, promising their decision will be. I don't think we expect the best outcome here. Again, we're dealing with the Supreme Court today as it is. But I do have hope that there will be a narrow decision that would still leave room for states to have these proactive and positive and lawful policies that are in favor of inclusion.
Did they bring up Bostock and how they were going to reconcile that yesterday, or were they just sort of like, let's just ignore what we did in 2020?
They didn't really. I mean, Bostock did come up, but there wasn't any certainty. It seemed like in Bostock, right, that was an opinion that was Gorsuch's opinion that he drafted, and Kavanaugh was also in the majority. It seemed Kavanaugh, in this case, seemed, to distance Bostock from the facts in this case. And in Bostock, notably, the court acknowledged that it wasn't reaching other areas outside of Title VII employment. They weren't talking about sports. They weren't talking about bathrooms. But still, again, fundamentally, on the basis of sex, because of sex, they're not different, right? So the principle itself should apply, but how they would apply it in the context of sports will likely differ.
I am something that baffled me a little bit, and I was like, why are you talking about this, Judge Kavanaugh? And I'm curious what your reaction was to this, about how he seemed to think that his time coaching girls basketball it has some bearing on constitutional law. But I mean, so I'm not an attorney. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't have any bearing on constitutional law. I think there are people who will say, well, I have experience as a parent with daughters who play sports. Listen, I'm a mother. I have 2 kids. I have a daughter who's playing sports as well. And we know that we support inclusion in sports. And I don't see that inclusive policies as a threat to her and her ability to succeed as an athlete. As a Title IX attorney and as someone who is with an organization that has been advocating for the rights of women and girls for decades, including in sports, I know that there are real issues that are plaguing women and girls in sports, right? There has been data and research that confirms that high school girls have over 1 million fewer opportunities to play sports compared to high school boys. College women have fewer opportunities. College women are shortchanged millions of dollars in scholarships compared to men. And now we're talking about name, image, and likeness. And there are serious Title IX concerns based on the inequality of, who's actually going to benefit from name, image, and likeness deals.
We are talking with Shawali Patel, who is a Title IX attorney and the Senior Director of Education Justice at the National Women's Law Center. Shawali, can we keep you for one more segment? Because I have a question about science and how this court is using it. Can we keep you after the break? Do you have time to stay with us?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. You're listening to The Gaily Show on AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk. More after this quick break.
Attention event planners and festival organizers. This is Frank Brown from Minuteman Press Uptown, your union print shop partner for your next event. We're here to check items off your list and make your event the talk of the town. From stunning banners and eye-catching signage to programs, tickets, and name badges. We print everything. Get promotional products at prices that let you load up on merch and fill those swag bags. Make your event unforgettable with Minuteman Uptown. Visit us at mpuptown.com.
Get ready to zoom into a world full of color, música, and alegría at Children's Theater Company. Go Da Go, Ve Pero Ve is a bilingual musical bursting with playful, high-speed energy as dogs drive, swim, and race to the big dog party. This joyful espectáculo blends English y Espanol with expressive physical storytelling. Go Da Go is sure to have you laughing, moving, and howling with delight. On stage January 20th through February 22nd. Tickets at childrenstheater.org.
Hey, Francois, have you made any New Year's resolutions?
No.
Well, mine is to learn some French. Can you help me?
Bien sûr.
How do you say this? Can I buy you?
Est-ce que je peux t'acheter
Macaroons from Nicolette's.
des macarons de Nicolette?
Now, say it all at once.
Est-ce que je peux t'acheter des macarons de Nicolettes?
Oh, absolutely. I have a box of raspberry rose, blueberry cheesecake, and chocolate.
Mais c'est quoi ça?
Thank you, Francois. You can order them online at nicoletsmacaroons.com or visit their store in Plymouth. Merci.
Hi, I'm Beth Thompson, owner of Big Hill Books in the charming Bryn Mawr neighborhood. Our customers call us the happiest bookstore in the Twin Cities because here, joy isn't an escape, it's resistance. You'll find bookshelves full of inspiration, 2 cats who think they run the place, and Gigi, our gentle shop dog. Visit us at 405 Penn Avenue South or online at bighillbooks.com. And be sure to say you heard about us on AM 950. We can't wait to meet you.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. Pretty much everybody I talk to is ready to leave 2025 behind. So what better way to do that than quite literally have Zero Res come over and clean that 2025 dirt out of the house. Pretty much any surface in your home can be Zero Resified, from carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, hardwood, and so much more. Zero Res can take care of it all, so it's time to call the cleaning pros. Start your freshest year yet in 2026 with Zero Res's biggest sale ever in celebration of the new year, and wash 2025 right out of your home with this deal. This month, you can get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $119 and a free hallway, plus 15% off regularly priced services like air ducts, upholstery, area rugs, tile, hardwood, and more. Call 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Backward or forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I am John Parker. We are coming up on the bottom of the hour, joined in studio by my executive producer, Jim Pounds. Yesterday, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in 2 cases on transgender participation in sports. To help us understand what happened, we are grateful to be joined by Shawali Patel, who is a Title IX attorney and the Senior Director of Education Justice at the National Women's Law Center, Shawali, how anti-transgender states and their lawyers and governors and legislatures choose to use science, or I would argue make up science, is a constant source of fascination and frustration for us here on the show. But there was an exchange yesterday that happened that I was like, this is interesting. So if I may sort of read some quotes for everyone here. So Justice Neil Gorsuch said, and I'm quoting here, a lot of evidence that girls perform a lot better in high school than boys. And the Justice Department, Trump Justice Department attorney Hashim Mupan said that quote was pseudoscience. And then Judge Kagan jumped in and said, quote, it's not pseudoscience. Boys' brains development happens at a different stage than girls' does. And Mopin jumped in again and said, quote, with all respect, I don't think there is any science anywhere that suggested that these sort of intellectual differences are traceable to biological differences. And then Justice Gorsuch jumps in and says, well, with respect, I don't think you're a PhD in this stuff. I know I'm not. I am curious, given this court's history of how they use science, what was your reaction to that?
I mean, I think Justice Gorsuch said it right there. We're hearing a lot of people who all of a sudden are the ones who claim to have a PhD in these issues in science when they don't, and claim to be the experts on speaking about the science behind this. The court did acknowledge there's still debate and uncertainty around here, which is part of why the constitutional questions still remain. The factual record still needs to develop. Needs to be developed around those types of questions where the parties had different experts that reached different conclusions on the science. I think it is, the other side, I will say the side that's opposed trans inclusion has often claimed, misclaimed essentially that there are categorical advantages across the board and for trans women and girls at all ages and levels. And that's just not what the science has shown. And in fact, what we do know, and what we do know from experience as well, is that there are all sorts of ways that different athletes have different advantages in sports, some that we even celebrate, right? Like Michael Phelps, people have talked a lot about his unusually long wingspan. There are other physical advantages that he has that gives him an advantage as a swimmer. Gymnasts who are short, basketball players who are tall, right? These are advantages that we know do help athletes and we celebrate. And yet we don't see that across the board when it comes to someone's sex assigned at birth. What it is that allows for us to have a certain skill or ability to succeed in sports varies depending on the sport that you're playing. I think it's really telling that opponents of trans inclusion have also tried to ban inclusion in billiards, in chess. This isn't just about sports to them. Like, that really shows this is about exclusion of trans people. And just another point on that, when you really look back at when these bans began 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it started with groups like the Heritage Foundation, who's behind Project 2025, or the Alliance Defending Freedom, that has strongly opposed LGBTQI plus equality and women's rights. They're credited with rolling back Roe v. Wade. And so we really need to look pretty closely at what began with this, because trans people have always existed, trans athletes have always existed. This is a problem that was manufactured by the far right in support of a political agenda.
Mm-hmm. And the court just seems to be going along with it. Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what comes out of the opinion, but yeah, there was a lot of you see some of the right wing talking points being repeated. That's right. Yeah.
A lot. Something also happened that I was like, oh wait, what is going on here? And I would love to have you unpack this for us. So the ACLU lawyer Josh Block was trying to get the court to say, well, hold off, don't rule on this particular part of it, send this back down to a lower court. What was happening there with that? I wasn't following it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a part about, the record in the lower court in the BPJ case did not fully develop around the experts and the science for the equal protection claim. So the lower court that last decided the case in favor of the ACLU's client, the Fourth Circuit did find that in favor of her on the Title IX claim, they had resolved the claim, but there were still open questions on the constitutional claim, because for a constitutional case of discrimination, it isn't just about whether or not the law discriminates. It also looks to the reason behind it. What is the justification that the state has, and what is the basis for that justification? And that's kind of where there's some need for record development and questions. And so some of that's kind of some of the back and forth around the constitutional questions, which is why, I think we may see a response to Title IX and how it applies. We might not on the constitutional question here.
Mm-hmm. So what happens now? Are they going to just wait till Pride to try to ruin Pride again? Or do we expect a decision to come out earlier than June? Do we still have you, Shawali? Uh-oh.
I think we'll see a decision. It could be June. I'm sorry, my Wi-Fi is cutting out. I think we'll see a decision. It could be May, June.
Oh, I think we've lost Shawali.
There she is.
And maybe back again. Can you hear us?
Hi, I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Yes, I can hear you.
You were telling us that you're expecting. We're just expecting rather a decision later this spring, possibly June.
Yeah. So, very well may fall during Pride Month, may fall on Title IX's anniversary on June 23rd. So we'll have to see. But we and many people across the country will be paying close attention once that decision drops.
Mm-hmm. Briefly then, what are things that, if anything, that LGBTQ folks can be doing, advocacy organizations supporting advocacy? Like what is something that folks, they're like, how do I help right now? What can they do?
Yeah, I think continuing to ensure that students are protected, calling out the Trump administration for their unlawful attacks on states that have either state anti-discrimination protections that protect trans people, or other policies within their athletics kind of boards or associations to fight back against disinformation that claims that because of the way the hearing went or what the Trump administration is doing, sports bans are required, because they're not. What the Trump administration is doing is unlawful. They're trying to create law through executive order, and that's just not how law is made. They're bypassing required processes. And so as much as we can educate people about their rights, parents, teachers, students, I think we're in a stronger position to preserve those rights.
Perfect. Shivali Patel is a Title IX attorney and Senior Director of Education Justice at the National Women's Law Center. Shivali, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Folks, when we come back, we're going to have Managing Editor of Windy City Times, Jake Wittig. You're listening to The Gaily Show.
This is Santita Jackson, Monday through...
Okay, bye.
Jake Wittig.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Can you hear us?
I can. I like the new logo.
Do you?
Yeah, it looks great.
We're slowly rolling it out.
Cool.
We were looking for something a little bit more in your face, and I thought, well, there's nothing more in your face than Act Up. So we took
Totally. Yeah.
Inspiration. Quick question for you. Can we start with the vigil for Renee Nicole Good?
Yep.
Is that all right to do?
Yeah. I don't have like a ton, but it ties so much with what's going on where you're at. So
that's what I was. If we could just sort of start there, and then would you like to do the Rick Garcia tribute or do the Cubs lawsuit?
Rick Garcia, that's a meatier story than the Cubs lawsuit. So
okay.
Can we come and live with you? I just want to get that in there.
I got lots of cool artwork. You can't see all of it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. Okay. Well, then we'll switch back over to the feed.
Awesome.
Our team includes attorneys, as well as a grief coach and a published writer ready to assist with legacy letters and extra wishes to go alongside your healthcare directive. Contact us today to learn more at schromenlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
Theater in the Round Players is kicking off the year with a beautiful new production of How to Catch Creation. It's a soulful drama centered on the powerful legacy of a Black feminist writer from the 1960s. Her story reaches across time, weaving together the lives of 4 artists searching for art, family, and a place to belong. You'll be captivated by this profound exploration of identity. Experience How to Catch Creation at Theater in the Round, January 16th through February 8th. Tickets at theaterintheround.org.
Hi, it's Penny from Nightingale in Minneapolis. Since 2012, we've been your go-to dining spot near 26th and Lyndale in South Minneapolis. Indulge in classics like our scallops, steak tartare, Nightingale burger, and the irresistible chocolate pot de creme. Chef Carrie keeps it fresh with seasonal dishes. We have craft cocktails and curated wines for anyone's taste. And Mondays mean half-price wine bottles. Open daily 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with the full menu until midnight. Join us at Nightingale where good times and great flavors come together.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for sunny skies today with a high near 20, tonight partly cloudy with a low around 9, and Thursday some light snow with a high near 33. You can discover macarons like you've never tasted before in Nicolette's Macarons in Plymouth. Pick up a box of elegant French macarons today, conveniently located off Highway 169. They're perfect for unique gifts, corporate events, or just for yourself. Stop in and order at nicolettesmacarons.com. That's nicolettesmacarons.com. AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Coming to you from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and airing on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Welcome back to The Gaily Show. It is 33 minutes after the hour. I'm John Parker. Jim Pounds, my executive producer, in studio with me. Folks, I have a pair of tickets to Ride the Cyclone. I want to give them away to you. It is at Lyric Arts on this Sunday at 2 p.m. First caller will get these tickets to Ride the Cyclone at Lyric Arts. What are you going to do if you're not watching football? Enjoy an afternoon on us at the Theater. It is a musical, very inventive, innovative musical. So I want folks to, you can call in at 952-946-6205, 946-6205. First caller gets that free pair of tickets to ride the Cyclone. All right. Where you going? Oh, you're just breathing. Windy City Times has been the voice of Chicago's LGBTQ plus community since 1985. This year, well, actually, now we're going to the 41st year. We're in 2026, John. So this marks the 41st anniversary of uplifting queer stories, reporting with pride, and chronicling LGBTQ plus history. You can visit windycitytimes.com/newsletters to sign up for the publication's weekly LGBTQ plus news updates. Jake Wittig is managing editor of Windy City Times, where he reports in-depth stories on Chicago's queer community and oversees the publication's growing newsletter operation. Also, the Chicago Journalists Association's Journalist of the Year for 2025. Jake, it's good to see you again. Jake, you muted yourself, I think.
Oh, dear.
I'm back. Good to be back.
All right. So it's been very heartening I mean, we're based here in the Twin Cities, and, you know, we've had a lot of intensity that we've been dealing this with week, and a lot of tragedy. So it's been very heartening to see folks throughout the country and really the globe who have been having protests and vigils for Renee Nicole Good and her wife and family to support them. And so what can you tell us about, there was a vigil held in Chicago too. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, first, I just want to ground this and say my heart goes out to everyone in Minneapolis that is going through this right now. ICE had invaded Chicago late last year, and it was just totally awful. You know, who knows when they'll be back. But it just seeing what's happening out of Minneapolis, their tactics are just getting worse. They're growing. It's just awful. So I'm really sorry to everyone who's affected by that. And I'm not the only one in Chicago. There were actually several actions last week of Chicagoans coming together to protest ICE, to demand them get out of Minneapolis, and pay tribute and remember Renee Nicole Good. So there were several protests downtown that drew thousands and thousands of people, protests across the neighborhoods as well. But the thing that I covered was a vigil organized by Chicago's LGBTQ plus community for Renee Nicole Good. And this was last Saturday. It was a candlelight vigil. It was organized by Dawn Valenti. She is a very prominent organizer here in Chicago. She's an advocate for LGBTQ plus people and especially crime victims. So I've actually been in touch with her before. There was a hate crime here in Illinois, and when I did the story, she reached out to me and asked if I could get her in touch with the victim, and I know she helped them out. So she's got a history of doing this. She created a similar vigil actually after the Pulse nightclub shooting. So people in Chicago could just mourn, but also really importantly, send their love to the people that are affected right now. So a big message on Saturday was sending our love to the people in Minneapolis, and especially Renee Nicole Good's wife. Dawn Valenti made a point of calling her out and just saying, we see you, we hear you, we stand by you, and we're here with you, united as a community.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I mean, thank you for covering the story, and we're really grateful to Chicago, our Chicago listeners, for your support. I know we've had some folks reaching out to us here at the show as well to check in with us, and it's really, we need all the support we can get right now, and not just, I mean, to your point, like what was happening in Chicago, we're this month, and hopefully they're not going to stay here forever. But who's going to be next? You know what I mean? Portland, Seattle, New York. It's just,
well, they are
seemingly
it does
endless.
appear they're trying to escalate. I mean, 3,000 thugs in, I don't know how many were in Chicago, but this is more
I think around 300. So,
yeah. So these thugs outnumber our local police, Minneapolis and St. Paul police departments. So they're trying to start something. That's why they're here. I'm sure they were in Chicago as well. And so I think that's the fear that we have, is they've come here to try to start the you-know-what now.
Mm-hmm.
And if they tried to start in Chicago, and they have a different situation. They're sting in hotels here. Were they staying in hotels in Chicago
I think out in the burbs, maybe.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, and from what I've read and seen online about what's happening in Minneapolis, it seems like they're just everywhere. In Chicago, it was really like specific neighborhood by neighborhood they were targeting. So,
Well, we have an advantage Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's going to be below zero overnight. So I hope they take us on when it's below zero, because they're going to have some surprises.
Aren't like a lot of these guys from Texas? Like, I don't think they can handle the cold.
They're gun show dropouts, from
There-
Louisiana. Yeah.
There was video, I don't know, there's so many videos, but there was video I saw on Blue Sky of 2 agents who kept slipping and falling on ice on the sidewalk.
On a sidewalk.
And it was...
It was precious.
Oh my gosh.
Well, there's going to be a lot of that those 3 days.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So breaking news out of some tragic news coming out of Chicago with the passing of Rick Garcia. You had a really great article here on that. What can you tell us related to that story, Jake?
Yeah, so Rick Garcia is a longtime legendary gay activist here in Chicago. He was one of the architects of the Chicago Human Rights Ordinance that banned discrimination based on sexuality and gender identity, too, I think, at the time. And just a central figure in then taking that victory, scaling it to the county level and then the state level, and advancing other civil rights protections for queer people throughout Illinois. He died earlier this week at 69 years old. He was just having some health challenges, and he really leaves behind a legacy of decades of service to our community. So I've been working on a larger obituary. Yesterday we had a small, I would say, death announcement out. But actually, about an hour ago, I just published a very full obituary. I talked to dozens of people, not dozens, a dozen people, and just learned so much more. I mean, I've talked to Rick Garcia throughout my career as a journalist, not super extensively. He wasn't as active in his later years. But it's been incredible to hear how much he accomplished for people like me to do what I'm doing today.
Mm-hmm. There was going through your amazing obituary article about him. There was a bit there about nuns and organizing to have nuns meeting with aldermen to talk about faith and how they were going to get that religious ordinance passed. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Exactly. So Rick Garcia, I think he was just vacationing, according to some accounts. He was vacationing in Chicago around 1986. He was already involved with a group called New Ways Ministry based near Washington, D.C., and they work to advocate for LGBTQ plus people within the Catholic Church. So he had this connection to that movement already, and he was vacationing in Chicago. He ran into someone involved with the Catholic Church that he already knew, and she was like, she heard he was in Chicago. He reached out to get lunch, and she's like, "Oh, you must be in town to work on the Human Rights Ordinance." And he was like, "What?" And then she told him like, "Oh, God sent you here for a reason." So that's kind of how he got wrapped up into this battle for Chicago's Human Rights Ordinance. At the time, they were so close to passing it in 1986, but the Catholic Archdiocese intervened and was like, "Nope." So a bunch of alder people weren't going to support it anymore. But where Rick Garcia had strengths was this intersection of LGBTQ plus identity and the Catholic Church. So he found nuns in Chicago who would speak publicly about supporting the community, and he'd take them to these alder people for meetings. So when they would say, "I can't support this bill, this ordinance, because it has gay rights in there and I'm a Catholic," he would say, "So is this nun. Why don't you talk to her about the bill?" So it was a really effective strategy. And then ultimately 2 years later, they had enough votes to pass the ordinance, and it made history. So,
wow.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, something that was so important at that time was media relations, because the media on the whole was, completely against the LGBTQ community, using very stigmatizing language, and even the folks that thought that they were doing right by us. And Rick Garcia was really good at navigating the media. Can you share a little bit more about his legacy related to media relations and talking about the community and getting the good stories about us out there?
Yeah, he was really savvy with the media, as you say. He knew the reporters to reach out to, how to sell the story and get people there to cover it. he also knew how to make noise so that people had no choice but to cover it. His approach was very direct, blunt, fiery. Some people would say he did too much, but he was a very all or nothing. We shouldn't have to compromise on our civil rights. So he made a lot of noise, and I think it was hard for journalists to ignore. He was. I know. I come from the Chicago Sun-Times. That's my paper. I read. I've always read. And he was all over the pages of the Sun-Times for decades. So really media savvy. Obviously, Windy City Times covered him extensively. And En La Vida, which was a Latino queer community newspaper that ran in the 90s and early 2000s. Robert Castillo, another Latino gay activist who wrote for En La Vida, interviewed Rick Garcia in 1997. And it was such an in-depth interview. They split it into 3 separate parts. And we went into our archives this week and pulled that out. So that's published at windycitytimes.com. You could read the full 3-part series. And it's a Q&A. It's Rick Garcia's words. He swears a lot. He has candor. Like it is Rick Garcia. So it's really cool to read that and understand what was his approach back then and what lessons, so many of them, can we still apply today. So,
and I mean, can you share a little bit about his time as the executive director of Equality Illinois?
Yes.
That was, founding, and then that is the group that is leading the charge at the state level politics.
Exactly. So after passing the Chicago Human Rights Ordinance, Rick Garcia and the other activists were like, now we need to expand these protections to more people throughout the state. So they worked at the Cook County Board and got a Cook County Human Rights Ordinance passed, so people kind of outside of Chicago could benefit. And then they said the next charge is the state level. So the activists came together. Him and Art Johnston, who owns Sidetrack, co-founded, at the time it was called the Illinois Federation for Human Rights, but there were groups all around the country sprouting up, like Equality this state, Equality that state. So they realized we should change it to Equality Illinois to kind of follow this movement. So it later became Equality Illinois, but through his work as the founding executive director of Equality Illinois, they were able to pass the Illinois Human Rights Act. And what's really cool about that is he played a key part in making sure that transgender identity and gender-related expression was included as a protected class in that act. Jim Bennett, who is the director of the Illinois Department of Human Rights, speaks about that. And he basically says that Rick Garcia would not support the bill if it did not include transgender people. And as a result, that's his no compromising attitude, and as a result, they got protections. So
on the right side of history.
Yeah.
This is such a comprehensive article, and I got to take a break here. And when we come back, I'd love to get what folks are saying in the community and the statements and quotes that they were giving to you, because he definitely needs to be recognized for all of the work that he's doing. And I'd be curious to see what folks are saying that you talk to. We're going to take that quick break. You are listening to AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota. And if you haven't signed up for our weekly e-newsletter to find out more about the Gaily Show and all of our queer programming that airs weekly on Saturday afternoons, you can go to am950radio.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and that's where you can sign up for that e-newsletter. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Jake Wittig, managing editor of Windy City Times, when we come back.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I've been telling you about my friends at Snap Construction, who are arguably the most well-reviewed exterior construction company in the metro. Don't just take my word for it. Take a look at all their reviews online. Winter is the most cost-effective time of the year to complete your construction project. A majority of Minnesotans choose to have their work completed on their home in the summer when they should be enjoying the weather. As a result, the demand for labor in the summer is much higher. The most cost-effective way to improve or restore your home is in the winter due to the lower demand. Right now, Snap Construction is offering an additional 30% off of labor to the AM 950 listeners on your next construction project between now and the end of February. Call 612-333-SNAP and mention AM950 for an additional 30% off. As always, Snap Construction stands by their work with a lifetime craftsmanship warranty. Don't wait to get a free estimate by calling 612-333-SNAP or find them online at snapconstruction.com. Financing options available.
Crooners is a classic supper club with a wide range of entertainment. Make your reservations for a parade of international, national, and local artists in the main stage showroom, the intimate Dunsmore Jazz Room, or outdoors at the seasonal Belvedere Under the Stars space. Or enjoy Maggie's Piano Lounge. Enjoy 4-star food and drinks with first-class supper club service. What are you waiting for? Go to croonersmn.com for more information and schedule. That's croonersmn.com.
I am the amazing Cassandra, a mechanical fortune teller who can predict the exact date and time of your passing. But 5 teenagers have died, and I alone have the power to save them if they can pass my test of song. Their musical trials begin January 16th at Lyric Arts Theater in Anoka. Ride the cyclone along with them at lyricarts.org.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. Pretty much everybody I talk to is ready to leave 2025 behind. So what better way to do that than quite literally have Zero Res come over and clean that 2025 dirt out of the house. Pretty much any surface in your home can be Zero Resified, from carpets, tile, rugs, upholstery, hardwood, and so much more. Zero Res can take care of it all, so it's time to call the cleaning pros. Start your freshest year yet in 2026 with Zero Res's biggest sale ever in celebration of the new year, and wash 2025 right out of your home with this deal. This month, you can get 3 rooms of carpet clean starting at just $119 and a free hallway, plus 15% off regularly priced services like air ducts, upholstery, area rugs, tile, hardwood, and more. Call 952-0RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Backorder forward spells the same. Zero Res.
Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I'm John Parker. We are coming up on the top of the hour in studio with my executive producer, Jim Pounds. Before we get back to our conversation with Jake Wittig, managing editor of Windy City Times, the family of Renee Nicole Good has issued a statement in the past hour, their first time that they are speaking out after her murder last Wednesday, issuing the statement through the Chicago law firm Romanucci and Blandin. I'm going to read just a little bit of this statement. You can find it online. It says, "We want to thank everyone who has reached out in support of Renee and our family. The kind of unending care we've been given during this time is exactly the kind that she gave to everyone. Nay was the beautiful light of our family and brought joy to anyone she met. She was relentlessly hopeful and optimistic, which was contagious. We all already miss her more than words could ever express. Her voice is the one singing the song stuck in your head. More than anything, she is there when your heart breaks and fills for another person. When we remember Nay, we remember her abundant heart, and we will move forward, imitating that unending care. We appreciate our privacy as we continue to mourn at this time." That was a first public statement by the family of Renee Nicole Good through their law firm, Romanucci and Blandin. Of note, that is the law firm that represented the family of George Floyd after his murder by the Minneapolis Police Department officer Derek Chauvin. They have said that they are planning, also after the statement was issued, they issued a statement saying that they are planning to conduct a civil investigation into Renee Nicole Good's death. Yes, I'm not going to get into that whole statement for right now, but breaking news just over this past hour, first statement but from the Renee Good's family and from the law firm representing her that they are going to pursue a civil investigation into her death. Jake, before the break, we were talking about Rick Garcia, amazing firebrand and leader and advocate in the Illinois LGBTQ community. I am curious, what have folks been saying to you and in public related to his passing?
Yeah, what I'm really hearing is there's not like a single piece of LGBTQ plus legislation that doesn't have his fingerprints on it. Um, After he and Equality Illinois severed ties in 2011, and he went on to work for a group called the Civil Rights Agenda. This was founded by an attorney, Jacob Meister, and they were really trying to advance marriage equality at the same time as Equality Illinois was continuing to do that. So there were two fronts there. And Jacob Meister said the same thing. Like, he worked tirelessly from the Human Rights Ordinance all the way to marriage equality. He really did so much. After working at the Civil Rights Agenda, he went on to various roles within government. He worked at the Cook County Sheriff's Office for a while. He was recently working at the Illinois Secretary of State's office, and he ran to be a local water commissioner in 2022, although he didn't win that race. So that's a little bit more about what he did, but the community is just really at a loss, stunned, I would say. He was young, 69 years old. I spoke with a close friend of his, Jackie Lynn. She is an out transgender woman who founded her own construction business, Heels and Hard Hats. And she had basically transitioned and was having trouble finding work in the construction biz. They would tell her, we're not going to hire you if you're going to come to work as a woman. Like, you got to leave that stuff at home, is what they told her. So Rick Garcia actually encouraged her, start your own business. You don't need them. So she did. And then Rick really held her hand, I guess, and supported her through the process of getting a women-owned business certification, which really opened her up to a lot of government contracts and a lot more work. So yeah, just a key ally across not just the gay rights movement, but expanding it to include trans people too. And yeah.
He will be missed for sure. I do want to turn to a story that broke in the past week related to the Cubs, a Chicago institution. Can you tell us about this lawsuit that was filed by an employee against them?
Yeah, so the Cubs, there's a former employee of the Cubs. Her name is Miss Cooper, and she was working for them and basically subject to a lot of discrimination allegedly while she was working there. In the lawsuit she filed, she says that coworkers would regularly harass her because of her gender identity. They would use derogatory slurs and misgender her. When she complained, she felt like she was retaliated against, and she had reported this to HR, and allegedly HR went and told her coworkers, like, hey, she's saying this about you, and it just made the environment even more hostile for her to work in. So just a really unfortunate alleged work environment, and she's suing. She wants a trial by jury in federal court. And I reached out to the Cubs for comment, but they do not comment on pending litigation.
Are you surprised, from whatever you know about the Cubs, that this is the case? Or
I want to be careful because I don't know much about the Cubs. It just has like, I just have my aversion to the sports world in general. I own experiences there where I'm like, maybe some of the people can be a little homophobic, but I'm not going to paint everyone with a broad stroke or whatever.
I think that question is because we don't know the sports team. I mean, in Minneapolis and St. Paul, it seems like all of the sports teams seem to have some type of a relationship to the queer community, whether that's like Pride Days or they're literally at Pride. And so I think what we were trying to figure out, we were like, we don't know. Like, do the Cubs have like a Pride Day? Do they participate in the Pride Parade? Like,
yeah, they do participate in the Pride Parade. They have a Pride Night every year. Laura Ricketts, the Ricketts own the Cubs. She is part of the LGBTQ plus community, so they do have ties with the community. I don't know. I can't speak for trans people though. So,
okay,
yeah.
Jake Wittig is managing editor of Windy City Times. You can read all of his award-winning writing and journalism, and also sign up for all of the e-newsletters that he manages at windycitytimes.com. Joins us here bi-weekly on Wednesdays, and we're very grateful for it. Jake, thank you for all that you do, and we'll see you back here in a couple weeks.
Of course. See you soon.
All right, folks, that is all for us today. Up next on WCPT 820 in Chicago, it is Democracy Now! On AM 950 here in Minneapolis, it is the Matt McNeil Show. Stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio. And then at 10 p.m. Central, Step Into the Unknown with Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio. And until this time tomorrow, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.